I'll try to make it short, but probably won't succeed. This is 100% true, and I still can't explain it. I lived in an apartment for about 2 years and never had a single incident in regards to weird things happening until one of my roommates moved in. Keep in mind, it was a 4-bedroom apartment and I had a few people come and go while living there. I was the only one who lived there for a full 2.5 years. During my last fall semester living there, when the new girl moved in, is when things started to get a little weird. I've always been a fan of scary movie marathons, especially once the Halloween spirit hits around mid-August, and that's when things started happening. I would have a group of 5 to 8 people watching a movie in my apartment, and one night our apartment door slowly creaked open. It didn't open much, and my neighbors would usually walk in without hesitation, Seinfeld style, so I was waiting for someone to poke their head around and say hello. Nothing. So we got up, looked around the hallway, and concluded that it was probably just a breeze or draft. No big deal. The next time we watched a movie, we decided to keep the door unlocked again to see if the same thing happened. This time we were prepared just in case, and sure enough, it happened again. Myself, my roommate, my boyfriend, and one of my neighbors all jumped up, looked out the door, and ran separate ways up and down the stairs. There was no one around. No footsteps, no doors closing. Nothing. The strangest thing was when we watched Paranormal Activity 3. We were discussing whether to leave the door unlocked and talking about how strange it was that the door kept opening. Remember, this had never happened before in my apartment for the first 2 years I was living there. Right before we started the movie, my boyfriend had stated, "I can shrug off the door opening and no one being around is just a draft of air or something of the sort. What I would find creepy is if the door opened and then slammed shut." It was one of those passing comments where everyone was like, "Yeah, that would be creepy," and you just go along with whatever else you were doing. We weren't even halfway through the movie. All the lights were off in the apartment, and of course we left the door unlocked. This time, however, we heard the doorknob turn. The door slowly creaked open as it had done before, but this time it opened about a quarter of the way, changed direction, and slammed shut. The entire apartment shook. It was on the middle level, and the dry erase board that we had on the wall fell down onto the floor. By this point, half of us were frozen, staring at the door, while others of us rushed to turn on the lights and look out the door again. I still can't explain it, and after it happened, it were all like, "Whoever or whatever is messing with us, if we pissed you off, we're sorry. We were kidding around and would appreciate if you left us alone." About a week later, the new girl roommate, who was never present during any of this because she went home on the weekends, was walking around speaking in tongues and throwing holy water all over the apartment in order to bless the apartment. We hadn't even told her about any of it happening. Still sends chills down my back when I think about it. There's a house about 10 miles from my house that one of my friends, we'll call him Jim, lived near before he moved to my school district. He always told me that it was haunted. The house is an old Civil War house, and Jim told me that the ghost of a woman who hung herself when her lover died in battle could be seen on the balcony. Shortly after getting my license, some of my other friends and I decided to investigate. When we got there, it was obvious that nobody had lived there for about 10 years. The house was owned by the bank, but we weren't deterred from trying to enter. The front door was locked, but we kept trying. After trying 5 other doors, it's a big house, we tried the final one. As my buddy reached for the doorknob, we all heard an absolutely horrifying scream, like that of a woman. The house is in a bit of a wooded area, so we quickly to shrug it off as it could have been a fox. Of course, we went back about a week later after Jim told us where to find a key. So we got in and looked through the house. The only particularly strange thing was that the kitchen had empty cans strewn about. But when we got upstairs and to the balcony, we find a dead raccoon that appeared to have been horribly mutilated. In typical group of teenage boy fashion, we stayed and ignored it as best we could. I, being the only one with a real belief in the paranormal, began trying to communicate with anything that might possibly been up there. After about a half hour, my friend Sam felt a scratch down the side of his neck. When he freaked out, we all denied that it was us. It certainly wasn't me. At school the next day, he showed us his neck, and sure enough, there were claw-like scratches going down his neck. If that wasn't weird enough, we went back that weekend, and on the window of the garage door was a water stain in the perfect image of a skull. I took a picture of it, and in the image could be seen the shadow of what looked like a claw grabbing the doorknob. Claw. Doorknob. Not okay. Finally, one night we went out to the house and entered the barn to hide a doll that we planned to use to scare another one of our friends with. We had it dressed in a jacket and hat and stood it up on a chair that we'd brought. When we took our friend into the barn the next night, the doll was missing. The jacket was still there, as were the hat and chair. We never found the doll, and a year later the props are still right on the floor where we found them. For the past 3 years, I've been volunteering at my local community police station. As it's a community station, the officers assigned to it don't have a car. We don't have storage lockers, and we don't have holding cells. As a volunteer, I mainly handle minor collisions, thefts under $5,000, lost or stolen item reports, and vandalism. When people come in with a found item like a purse or wallet, we search through it, make note of its contents, and input the file into the system. Around midsummer last year, it was a particularly slow Friday afternoon. I worked the 3 to 7 p.m. shift, which is closing time, when an older man walks in to report a found handbag. We take down his info, where he found it, a nearby parking lot, and send him on his way. The constable gave me the go-ahead to look through it. When I opened it, I was surprised to find it filled with small pieces of paper. On each piece was a first and last name with a phone number on the back. In total, I counted 118 people and numbers. The only other content was a wallet. The only thing inside was a picture of 3 Caucasian females, 2 being young, between 4 and 8, and the third appearing in her early 30s. On the back of that picture were only 2 first names. Kate Lynn was written on the back of the adult, Sarah on the youngest-looking child, and the word pickup crudely written on the other child. So, it being a particularly slow day, I took it upon myself to call all the numbers on those pieces of paper. Sure enough, each number belonged to the name paired with it, but no one knew of the 3 in the photos. Now let that sink in. Think about your own life and the people you know. I'm not saying that these people didn't know a trio with these names. I'm saying none of the people I contacted knew of any single mother of 2. Not one. I did in fact make an effort to contact all 118 people. However, about 1/3 of the numbers weren't in service, and about 30 didn't answer their phone. I also tried asking every odd person if they knew any of the people I had been calling. Not listing everyone, obviously, just a random handful. No dice. My constable submitted the description of the bag and wallet into the system and held on to it for about a month. I and a few other volunteers made it our own little project to try and connect any of the people together, but eventually we gave up, closed the file, and threw out the bag. To this day, we're all baffled by how none of the people in the bag held any connection to each other. No family relation, criminal backgrounds, or vehicle similarities. At best, a few shared the same community, and we never found out who the 3 people in the photo were or why there was a photo of them in the bag.